see that? Give me a thumbs up if you can. Cool, great. So, as you should know, this is the show and tell for Tech Net Zero. And today we're going to be sharing with you an update on our research participants and who we've been able to speak to and what we've got booked in. We can also, show some early research findings, which is always the most exciting moment in a discovery. And we've been chatting to the mighty Amazon this week, so we'll share some of that information as well with you. And we're also going out and about everywhere at the moment, speaking to different groups, presenting what we're up to, trying to raise awareness of it and get other people's feedback. So we'll let you know where you can see us at a place near you, hopefully. So we'll hopefully cover this in about 20 minutes and then some time at the end for questions. As we go along, feel free to add questions into the chat. If appropriate, we'll cover them then, but if not, we'll make sure we cover them all at the end. This is us, but there's no change here, so we'll just whiz through this. So first of all, over to Jess.
Thanks, Susan. So we've got a bit of an update on how our participant recruitment has been going, which is the next slide, please, Gemma. Oh, Susan, slide master. So we've all new things this sprint. So we had got access to some new contacts from the Digital Landscape Review team. We were able to have those shared, and that had a bunch more people and email addresses that we hadn't been able to contact previously, so that was excellent. We tried a new email template to send to people to try and see if that would help with a bit more engagement, and we also got the email sent from Rhiannon's CDPS email address through a piece of software called HubSpot. So a lot of experimenting there, but we thought we might have a better response it coming from a CDPS email address. We also had some more intros and people at CDPS supporting, linking us up with people, which was fab. And as Susan mentioned, we've been planning events and group sessions that we can be doing as well to be tackling people in different areas, and also stuff with social media, ways that we could drum up interest in taking part in the research. So I know Gemma cornered Harriet on Friday at GovCamp to get a video recorded to encourage people to participate. And I'm going to be recording a video this afternoon talking a bit about some of our findings again to try and encourage people to participate. So that's all looking pretty positive. So what we've achieved then is in the last sprint, we've interviewed 6 people, and then we've got 8 more booked in for this coming 2 weeks, which isn't too bad, and a few more hot leads of people that I think will book in to speak to us. And about 16 people have done our survey, which isn't loads, but we're definitely in a better position than we were this time last sprint. So hooray. But we're still a little worried about reaching procurement people. So on the right there, if you can see that, if that's not too small, I just took a screenshot of where we're tracking the types of people we're speaking to and the sorts of organisations they're coming from. Not any booked in who work in the commercial space to do with digital, which would be really good to meet some people in that area. So that's be something we're thinking about. And we haven't had a lot of luck convincing people working in sponsored bodies to speak to us either. So not all hoorays, but we're definitely in a better position than we were. So that is the update on the recruitment. And shall I just keep talking, Susan, because it's me again? So what we've also got that we can share is some initial findings of what the sort of things that are coming out, some of the interviews that we're doing. I've just pulled out some stuff quite scrappily to share today, but this definitely isn't the finished findings. It's only based on 4 of the interviews. So use it to tickle your appetite of what sorts of things are coming up, but don't remember these in detail because they might change. So on the question of what is stopping people who are working in digital or people who are working in sustainability from being able to use digital to achieve net zero, we've got a couple of findings. So on the next slide is one of them, which is that digital people don't know that they should be trying to do it. So they're not necessarily aware of their organization's net zero plans. That isn't something that has come to them, and there's not something that they're factoring into the decisions they're making. So that's obviously a problem. They don't know that they should be considering sustainability stuff. Is this something that resonates with anyone here? A bit of audience participation. If you have seen examples of this, do you want to raise your hand if that resonates? Either that didn't work or everyone has not seen examples of this being a problem. Okay, we'll go on to the next barrier. Maybe people will have seen examples of that. So another thing that's coming up is that people, even if they're aware that they should be thinking about sustainability, they're not exactly sure what impact digital could have. What does good look like? And that's what the other part of our discovery is looking at defining. But people are saying things like their IT team aren't really bothered about it. They don't really think it's an area they should be focusing on because they don't know what's possible. And then even people that have a bit clued up on the fact they should be doing it and that there's a big opportunity, it's still quite hard to explain and articulate, and it's quite massive and difficult to get your head around. So again, that's obviously a problem. If people don't have a clear understanding of how it applies to them, then they can't put that into action. Audience participation, take 2. Has anyone seen examples of this? If you want to raise your hand, we'll see if that one resonates with anyone anymore. Yes, 2 people, hooray. But I mean, if it isn't a widespread thing, then that's also fine because this is initial findings. If you want to put anything in the chat relevant to any of this, then please do. And the third one that we've got here is about the teams who are working on digital services and on sustainability stuff not really being joined up. And obviously siloed working is something that gets talked about a lot and something that we try and combat with multidisciplinary teams and stuff, but it's not something that's being put into practice at the moment. So people have been saying things like, yes, ideally the sustainability people, the digital people would be all joined up, but the reality is we don't really work like that. We don't even really know if there's a team that are looking at net zero in our organization. So that's that. And then I've got a couple of other little things. So there are other potential barriers which aren't things that are actively stopping people from considering sustainability with their digital services at the moment, but they came up as barriers to just doing better digital services in general. So I thought it'd be worth sharing these, and these probably aren't a surprise either to people. If we go to the next slide, Susan. So things like when they've had training on digital topics, it not being directly relevant to their setting where they work, it being too idealistic and not pragmatic to the fact that, especially in local authorities, they've got people who don't have very much time to be thinking about all these different things. So they find it quite hard to put some of the training they've had into practice. Culture change, obviously, it always comes up, but being hard to engage some of their colleagues, people not wanting to change and that kind of thing. And also just general lack of capacity for digital and capacity to be using digital to do things strategically when some of the basics are still struggling, like getting working computers and stuff. So that's a little taster of some of the findings. I will pass to Carwyn, who's going to talk a little bit about some conversations he's been having this sprint.
Sure, thank you, Jess. Everybody hear me okay? Alongside the user conversations, so we're definitely looking for many more people to participate in that. So reiterate what Jess was saying. We've been having other conversations with the best practice or organizations or companies that are sort of seem to be leading in these spaces. And last week's highlight conversation on that side was we had a good conversation with the sustainability leads, regional leads for Europe, with AWS, Amazon Web Services. So I'm sure many of you listening have heard of them, maybe using the services. And it was very reassuring, humbling, and interesting to speak to them. They share this sort of consistent view that we found with the UK government with DEFRA about there being two perspectives on this, the sustainability of tech, which most people will be speaking about in the sector, but also how technology itself can be used for sustainability aims in its own right. Digital technology we mean here. I'll mention a little bit about what they have shared with us about their shared responsibility model when it comes to sustainability. I'll also share a little bit what they've been up to in terms of their customer carbon footprint tool, which again, I think this is a model that's worth flagging up. Amazon have released this back in March this year. I suspect we'll see something very similar from other providers as well. But I think this is the kind of thing that may be well worth looking at our services in public sector internally, whether we're using cloud services or not. So I'll come to that one. And then some comments on importance of accurate measurements and reporting as well. So I'll just, can you go to the next slide, sorry, Jess? So one thing that they were very keen to sort of highlight was that this separation of responsibility of how much a cloud provider can do. So their responsibility of the sustainability of the cloud services they operate themselves. So the data centers, all these things we hear about that are as bad as the airline industry, servers, cooling, water, energy, that kind of thing, building materials. But the importance of emphasizing that they're doing a good job in that side. Other providers are doing similar good work in those areas. But to highlight the responsibility of the customers within this overall carbon footprint, that's the design of the services, the design of the software, the way that these things are put together, that's within the realms of responsibility for the customers themselves. And of course, you can get some gains by moving up to cloud services. There's lots of work done on that. But the emphasis, again, reiterating the story we were hearing from DEFRA about the design of the services themselves, the digital services, the way they're put together is a big part of this. And Amazon were sort of reiterating that's how they were thinking about it as well. We asked them, how far can they go in helping with that? They have some reference architectures. They have some frameworks that sort of help people put things together in sustainable ways. They're developing those. They're just starting on that journey. But they see that becoming a bigger and bigger thing where there are reference designs that sort of hit certain targets or approaches that they will share with the communities. And again, this is a sector-wide thing that the cloud providers are working on this as well. Next slide, please, Jess. So one of the things that they've released recently is a carbon footprint tool. So if you log into your dashboard on this cloud provider, they will give you a breakdown of exactly how much carbon you are now clocking up using your different services, alongside the monetary expenditure. If you go to the next one, Jess. So you can see over time, day to day, how your collection of services on that cloud is ticking over. If you go to the next one, I think this is the one that I just want to drill home to people. I don't know if you can read that text there, but it says, based on your current cloud services usage, this chart represents the projected changes in yearly emissions. So this is really showing you, if you carry on the way you're going, this is where you're going to get to. This is how far you're going to be from reaching that net zero, just from the perspective of these cloud services. I think, and it'd be really good to get people's opinions on this, this kind of way of looking at how you're doing today, measurements, making some changes to see how they work, and then projecting into the future towards those 2030, 2050 aims. This is the way that these cloud providers are thinking about this. Measure, real measurements, not hypothetical paper calculations, actual measurements of how things are doing, and then extrapolate from that. Where is this going to get you within the next 1 year, 2 year, 4 years, so forth. And these feel like really important tools. These are business case driven for them because they want to, reduce the overhead of running their services. I think they fit well with the needs of organizations as well. So this is the kind of thing that is coming from these kind of providers. If you go to the next one, Jess. So I asked them, what are the biggest challenges to you? And you echo some of the comments that you were talking about, Jess, in your user research interviews. And at the top of the list, quite commonly, culture. So the way that organizations the customers now, are thinking about putting services together still has some way to go. The tech world is used to continuous improvements, continuous deployment. So you're always making little changes, seeing how well they work, and then proceeding or not going forward depending on what you find out. There's lots and lots of little changes over time versus the traditional legacy digital services world, which tends to be what's termed in the industry a forklift upgrade. Every 5 years ago or so, you bring in a new one and you replace it. That kind of culture change to really continually measure, monitor, make small changes, see how it goes. Tuning is something that they see not being adopted as a culture, but they think is critical to actually achieving the kind of aims that they're trying to support. Alongside that is the skills and education piece. So again, echoing what Jess is picking up in the user research, both sides, do people understand what is, from a digital perspective, possible or necessary? And then also from the carbon side, are they aware of what is possible, what is necessary, or whether the mandate is there or policy there to drive that forward? So they were, this is Amazon now, and I'm sure the other cloud providers would say similar stories. Culture, skills, and education is a big thing. And then they go hand in hand with the fear of the unknown. People don't know what they should be doing, so they don't do anything. It's easier to do nothing than do something if you're afraid or unsure of what you're meant to be doing. And the other one is a very interesting conversation about perception of risk. So they're looking at this and trying to encourage businesses to look at this as a business risk. If we don't do something about this now, you're going to be in trouble later down the line. And that fitted into an interesting conversation about adoption and policies within organizations. They commonly see, and I've seen this myself, I think some of the user research has shown us as well, the visionaries of the organizations that are stating the policies, the intents, they're on board. And very often the practitioners, the people on the ground, they're on board as well. But then there's a bit of a challenge in the middle of the organizations as to competing resources, awareness of policies, skills, education within those sort of areas to drive these things forward. So that's the kind of overview, if you like, of the conversations I had with Amazon. And we're continuing the best practice research as well. I've got another conversation this afternoon. And on the other side of it, we want to know from the practitioners, the public sector side of this, we want to know, how much of this do you resonate with? How much of this, maybe you've got some good stories about what you're up to, you want to share, or you have an insight into some of the challenges that are maybe preventing this kind of thing going ahead. So I'll pass over to you, Jess, again. You can reiterate that story, I'm sure.
This is the obligatory plug of, we do have a survey link in English and in Welsh. If you have not done it or shared it with everyone that you know, please do. And I'll post it in the chat. And the last thing we want to talk about is a few events. Shall I just do this bit? Yeah, why not? So Tech Net Zero project team on tour. So last week, we did a session in GovCamp Cymru about this topic and got the thoughts of the people there, which is really useful. So you need to go through the notes and comb through that. And then we've got upcoming this week and next week some other events. So we're doing a session at Digital Leaders Week on Wednesday. We've got a slot with the CDPS advisory panel on Friday. We're doing a knowledge sharing webinar next Tuesday, all the things. And we are hopefully going to have a couple of people go along to the Tech UK Net Zero conference, as well as getting together some of MSpark's contacts in North Wales in the sustainability and technology space to do some group stuff. And these will be a combination of sharing what we're doing of the project, sharing some of our findings, but also some opportunities to pick people's brains through these different sessions. So there's a few of them that people will be able to attend, like the digital leader session and the knowledge sharing webinar. So I think we should have the links to those. Oh, they're in the chat. Wonderful.
Okay. So just to close up then, we have our usual channels open to you. We share our week notes, which we email each week. You can get added to the distribution list, just email James, the email's there. We also do these sorts of show and tells fortnightly, and we'll also email out the recording afterwards in case, you know, for whatever reason you couldn't make it. We've got our 3 active Twitter accounts, so please do follow us and at us if you've got any comments to make. We've recently published a blog post about what does Tech Net Zero mean. If somebody could just drop those in the chat as well, that'd be great. And I think that's it. So it just remains to be seen what questions we have for people. Maybe just pop your hand up if you have a question, and then we'll get to you. Or just shout it out if you can't find a hand. Glyn.
Sorry, just there we are. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks for that. I was just wondering, you spoke to AWS. Have you got some of the conversations lined up with Microsoft or GCP at all? So I know that I spoke to Microsoft recently about their data centers, and they were talking, you know, a good game also about sustainability. But what struck me as a purchaser then of cloud services, how do you compare the two? How do you make that decision around cost but also sustainability? So just wondering if you're going to sort of triangulate the AWS conversation with the others.
We would love to. If anybody has, we have some conversations to try and get that answer out to them. The interesting point is that GDS did a piece of work a few years ago on this, and the one of the conclusions of their review of the footprint of the digital services is that they didn't have visibility within the cloud services to be able to report on that. Amazon have now released these tools, so obviously they're in a very good position to have those conversations because they're public. I don't think that you know, that same dashboard of costs is available with others yet. So maybe it's very difficult to do the comparison because the information is not there. So yes, it'd be fantastic to, and we do have some leads trying to get those conversations in as well with the other big two, the Google, the Microsoft, and you know, anybody else in that space. I think we've got one lined up with a smaller cloud provider actually later this week, who are more active in this space as well. So absolutely would want to have those conversations.
Okay, well, if there's anything you need from us on the Microsoft side, there's a couple of leads I could help with, but you may already have them anyway. So do get in touch. I can't really help with the Google side, although I do, you know a couple of organisations who've just signed up with Google for things. So you know, I'm sure we could help you. Yeah, thanks.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Any more for any more? Maybe just start talking if you have a question.
Yeah, the only thing I noticed as well is just for Karen really was obviously you've done the AWS carbon tour. One of the questions I'd probably pose is the pricing and output of carbon emissions shown when you're purchasing servers? Because I'm aware Google have got a costing measurement, but is it being displayed at the beginning of when you decide on a service provision?
Can you compare before you buy? That's a very good question. From what Amazon was showing, and this information is public, so you can actually go and see the press releases about this going back to March. Not so much. It's more in the dashboards after the fact. And they, to be fair, they were admitting this is sort of early on in the journey. Their primary focus at the moment is to measure and reports, but it's a very good point that should be visible through into the pre-purchase, procurement side of things, so people can make the informed decisions before they have to start spending the money. So that conversation is ongoing. They've opened up an olive branch to really continue this conversation. So if people do have questions that they think we should be asking them, following up on, I'll take that back to them.
Thanks.
Any more for any more? Five, four, three, two, one. Okay, well, thanks very much for joining us, everybody. And as I said, we'll share the recording anyway. So if you want to forward it on to your colleagues, feel free.